Welcome to Offbeat, the light side of law enforcement, part of the Treehouse Podcast Network. I'm your host, retired officer Steve Rutherford. Co-host for today's show, Detective Curtis Hadley.
Thanks for having me.
And we've got two guests joining us today. In studio, we've got retired officer, deputy, trooper. Reoccurring. Yes. We've got John Pelllizzari.
Good to be here.
Welcome back, John. And joining us remotely from the state of Maryland, we've got Deputy Scott Allen.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome, Scott. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Outstanding. Now, John, we did mention that, you are retired.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you are a returning guest. This is kind of the trifecta. This is your third visit to the studio.
Look forward to it all the time.
Well, you've got such a wealth of knowledge. How long was it in the law enforcement field?
45 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
Sorry, I gasped.
You okay down there, Curtis?
I'm good.
Well, in 45 years, your career is almost twice as much as a lot of guys, myself included.
True. And it shows. I mean, just look at this.
Okay, I guess that goes well either way, because you're either calling yourself old or you're saying I look young.
Distinguished. I like distinguished.
Yeah. Seasoned.
True.
So there you go. Seasoned, even better. Yeah.
Seasoned. Well marinated.
Well,
I was going to say.
then John's overdone.
I will agree with that. There is
Flip
no
them over,
doubt.
boys.
There is no doubt.
And John, we, just to remind our listeners, you had previously worked with Breckenridge PD, Department of Public Safety here in Texas, Wise County Sheriff's Office. You were a deputy marshal in Red River, New Mexico. And I think we also established you helped Moses with guarding the 10 Commandments.
It was. Worked with Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, all those.
I always heard that Methuselah cheated on his taxes. Was that true?
Did.
Okay. That's what I thought.
But you didn't want to look at them.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that. And that tombstone, at OK Corral, a lot of hype.
Really? But it's still a true story, right?
It was. It was true.
Okay.
And like I said, Doc was a drunk, but he was a good shot.
Okay.
Didn't know.
Yeah. Spoken from a firsthand witness.
True.
Right. You were there, right?
It was.
Okay.
Kind of off to the side.
Oh, all right. Well, Scott, you've got 45 years also, correct?
Negative, and I will not have 45 years. Sorry, John. No.
Hey, smart idea. I don't recommend it.
Now, Scott, you are a deputy up in the Maryland area. Where do you currently work?
So the crazy thing, because Maryland is a little nuts. We do have deputies here, but I am not. So I actually work for the county police, and we're considered officers. So from county to county, it changes a lot. It could be a sheriff's office with deputies that run that county, but some of the major counties have police departments as well as sheriff's offices with deputies, but we're considered police officers. So I'm currently in Prince George's County, Maryland, which is on the DC line. It's a very, very large county. Pretty busy most of the time. Our chief likes to say we're the 28th largest police department in the country. I don't know if it's true or not. We'll see.
That took him a lot of time to figure that up, though, right?
I would assume. How do you figure that out? Yeah, I think it is a great number, but how do you figure that out? I don't know.
I just wonder who's 29.
Somebody's got a lot
you
of
beat
time
somebody
on
out.
their
That's all that
hands.
matters.
Yeah. So you work for the county, but the county has police officers.
Yes.
And that's different. In Texas, we've got counties, but if you work for the county, then you are a deputy if you work for the county law enforcement. And then if, police officers work for municipalities.
So where I'm at, we have a sheriff's office that runs the courts, all civil paperwork, and kind of that side of things. And then we run the police calls for service. But where I live, which is in a different county, it's a sheriff's office, and they're all deputies, and they do everything. It's kind of strange.
Yeah, I guess they do that to keep you on your toes, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, is Prince George's County the only place you've worked? Or have you worked at any other agency?
I worked for the city of Annapolis for almost 8 years, and I've been with Prince George's County now coming up on 18. So as for John, just for his reference, I will be done in about 2 or 3 years.
Good idea.
Good for you.
Yeah, that's a good time. That gives you what, about 30 on the job?
About 30 total. Yeah.
30 is a good number.
It is a good number. Look, I brushed my hair for this event.
So you made it out with a full head of hair.
Yeah. I'm looking at John. I'm like, he looks pretty good with his hair there. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, it's a toupee.
Yeah. Used to look a lot better, but through the years it fell out, or I pulled it out.
Yeah, pulled it out.
More
like.
yes.
And had some people pull it out for me.
Yeah, that happens too.
That sounds a little strange.
That was off duty.
Remember, we were talking about those get together afterwards.
Oh, now, Scott, what all opportunities did you or have you had with your current agency and with Annapolis, your previous agency?
I've had a great career. You hear so many guys that get so far in their career and they're like, yeah, F this place. And I'm like, yeah, no, I hear you. I've had so much opportunity. Obviously, like everybody says, patrol, moved to a street level drug unit, did some stuff there, was on a part-time SWAT team with Annapolis, worked that for a while. Then I went to Prince George's County, became a detective. Who wants to be a detective? Not me is the answer. So I went into canine. That was kind of my bread and butter. I loved it. I love working dogs. Moved into aviation for a while, and that was a great job. But now I work in a narcotics section, and I train 9 dogs that we have within the unit. So that's where I'm at currently. But my career has been tremendous. It's really, really incredible.
Are they
Nothing like
interdiction
John.
dogs? Are they strictly interdiction or?
Oh boy, here we go. Curtis is going to get us into something crazy. So
I didn't want to get too deep in this, but I said to ask.
Yeah, so we were a really, really good interdiction unit, and we were doing mostly parcel interdiction. Did a little bit of roadside interdiction, but mostly parcel interdiction. And then all of a sudden, the command one day said, "Yeah, there's no more interdiction unit, and you guys are going back to like street drugs and doing all this stuff." And I'm like, "What the heck just happened?" And now it's kind of in turmoil when, our guys were producing crazy numbers, crazy numbers. The big one is they were pulling like 20,000 fentanyl pills, on a pretty good, on the regular. And that's the kind of stuff that really makes a difference.
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Get the stuff on the streets. Good deal.
Yeah.
And John, you used to be a canine.
8 years. For 8 years.
All right. And, so you guys have that in common. You ever assigned to a helicopter?
Well, I got to ride around in a helicopter back whenever I was DPS, whenever they had give you a call and said, you want to go riding that?
It's very uplifting.
Heck, true. It was.
What?
And like it said earlier, it's either stay at home, drink Crown Royal, or go flying. Heck yeah.
You don't want to do both,
flying.
yes. So
no, that's
pick
true.
One. Just pick one.
Just as long as the pilot wasn't doing it.
Yeah, you're good.
There. But like I said, K9, Scott said too, that K9 was awesome. I love K9. It was.
Did you ever go out with the Wright brothers?
The Wright brothers? Yeah. And let me tell you, horrible, pushy guy. I mean, he wanted to run the show.
I don't blame him.
Wilbur, he just took it.
Yeah.
It was, Kitty Hawk, it was a windy day. It's a good thing it was windy because we got a little lift.
Oh my!
John, we gotta love you. You just roll with it, man. And
I would like to come down and hang out with John for a little bit. I think it'd be a good time.
Come on down. I'm
He's
going
a
to be
good dude.
coming back up to Maryland. I got a cousin that lives out just west of you.
Yeah, you let me know. As long as it's
Well,
not
there we go.
West
It's a date.
Virginia, we're good. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
got to
maybe
stay
we could
away
pull
from
some.
there.
We could pull some hair out or something.
Yeah.
whoa.
There goes that off-duty hair pulling.
Well, Scott, you and I had the opportunity to talk before the show, and you told me several stories you've got, and from what I understand, you had a coworker that used to like to sleep on the job.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to save that one for last, but let's start it off good.
Let's dive into it.
Which, by the way, I do not necessarily endorse any of these stories. I should have like a disclaimer that we read for legal reasons. We spoke about the world changing for a lot of these young officers with body cameras and all the craziness. And you can't get away with this stuff these days. But I'm sure each of us here today has like I mean, John probably has 42,000 stories from his career that could like mesmerize you. So we had this one guy, and he was an older guy. He had a bunch of time on the job. He probably was at his 20, maybe a little bit more. And, midnight shift, he would always kind of sneak away, and everybody would be like, where's he at? Let's call him Bob for this thing. And everybody's like, where's Bob? Oh. And be like, no, I have no idea. So I'd see him and I'd go, hey, dude, where were you last night? Like, everybody was just looking for you. And he's like, I got a little honey hole. And I'm like, oh, okay. I said, well, where's it at? He goes, sorry, dude, not for your knowledge. And I was a relatively younger officer. And I'm like, okay, no problem. I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to find it. And he's like, nah, you're not going to find it. Trust me. And Annapolis was 7.5 square miles, not a big place. So I hunted for a long time. So I ended up finding him. I called my buddy over and I'm like, dude, he's here. And he's like, all right, cool. So we set it up. And for like 2 weeks, we prepared. We got supplies. We got everything. And we were ready to strike. So we go there one night. He's sleeping. So this guy was so old school. John is going to shake his head. He used to, when he closed his eyes, he would lay his gun on his lap. And I would, because we would check him out and I'd be like, ooh, that's not good. So I would tell the guy who I was working with, I'd be like, man, we got to be really careful, like really careful. This could go sideways. So we took the commercial like pallet rack when they wrap it in cellophane. We took one of those cellophane wraps and we wrapped the car like 50 times. And we tried to get it as tight as we could so he couldn't get the doors open. All right. So we wrapped it.
Got to be stealthy on that.
I mean, that's kind of scary because he was a pretty heavy sleeper. So we made some noises here and there.
Obviously.
Yeah. So we cellophane it, and then we took old school shaving cream like Barbasol, and we shaving creamed all the windows. So he couldn't see anything. And I'm like, well, how do we do this? I really didn't want to get like dispatch involved because then, people know what you're doing. We kept these kind of quiet. So I was like, hey, let's just bang on the trunk and run the other way. Like he can't shoot behind him. If he gets up and shoots, we'll be all right. And he was like, all right. So we bang on it and we start taking off. And probably within like 3 to 5 seconds, I see the brake lights hit and he's got the brake lights on. I'm like, oh, please don't put it in drive. Like that would be really bad. Next thing you know, he puts on the windshield wipers. Barbasol starts flying every which way, but it's like smearing into the windows. Like it's not clearing the windows. And next thing you know, he tries to open up his driver's door. And it opens like maybe 2 inches, 3 inches, but he's pounding on it to get out. And he can't get out. And he starts yelling. I mean, screaming, hey, who's out there? Eventually, it goes to, all right, I need some help. So we come out and I yell, "Put the gun in the holster." And he goes, "Scott." I go, "Yes, put the gun in the holster." So he holsters, we take a razor knife, we cut him out, and he goes off. He's like, and I'm only going to say this one. I know you've had other episodes. He says, "What the fuck?" And I said, "Yeah, that was a good one. I told you I'd find you." And he was like, "You got me." So it went on, and to this day, we still talk. He's an awesome guy, and he rolled with it. And he was like, "Okay, you got me." He tried to get me back a couple of times. It didn't work out too well, but that was kind of that was early in my career, but that is like a career story.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes. And could you imagine being in that car, you're sleeping, you wake up and everything's black, all the windows are blacked out. You try to get out, the door won't open. Yeah, no. That would be panic mode.
I think he got there for a minute, and that's why I told him holster.
Did he ever go back to sleep on duty?
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't ruin it.
Yeah. Well, then he started bringing somebody with him. You know, he'd be like, "Hey, could you come with me? I'm exhausted." I'm like, smart move.
I do like the dedication though, because you don't get that anymore. Where you actually took the time to get your shaving cream ready, the cellophane, and have it all ready. I mean, it wasn't like you just went over and just knock or threw a rocket and ran off. You actually put time and effort in to the prank itself. Well, you don't see that a lot anymore.
Yeah.
It takes preparation.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, for a good prank, you've got to have some thought behind it. You definitely need a shopping list because you're going to need supplies for this.
But that makes a better lasting memory because that prank's never going to go away in your head. It'll be there till the day you tell at someone's funeral. Or retirement party, one of the two. Let's go retirement party.
At his funeral. I'd just like to mention the one time we cellophaned him in his vehicle. And
So Curtis, funny story real quick. I'm at a retirement party, and it was a good friend. I mean, amazing guy. He's one of our homicide sergeants. And he's telling his story, and he's just talking to everybody, and he's like talking about certain people, and he's like, "Well, he's not with us anymore." Okay. And then he tells another story, and he says the person's name. He goes, "Unfortunately, he's not with us anymore." I'm like, damn, this is depressing, dude. Like, this is supposed to be a fun retirement party, but he had all these guys that were like mentors to him that just weren't around anymore.
It is.
Yeah, that's kind of a party downer there when you're talking about everyone and they're all deceased.
Well, that made you stay too long.
Been there, done that.
All right, guys, let's take a break. Welcome back. Welcome back to Offbeat, the light side of law enforcement. I'm your host, retired officer Steve Rutherford. Co-host for today, Detective Curtis Hadley.
Thanks for having me.
Joining us in studio, retired officer John Pelllizzari.
Glad to be here again.
And joining us remotely from the state of Maryland, we have Officer Scott Allen.
Happy to be here.
This segment is sponsored by Alexander Financial Management. If you have questions about retirement planning, investment strategies, life insurance, or estate planning, check out Alexander Financial Management at alexfm.com. Now, John, on the break, we talked about different things, and today, you've got a memory from today that you shared with me earlier, and what? Go ahead and tell the listeners.
Well, and what I'd said earlier too about since I had retired, I just forget all days. Well, I ended up setting an alarm this morning saying, "Go see Steve today." Well, all of a sudden I saw it was August, 23rd, and I thought, "Oh man, this one's got a special day to me." And I realized it was 21 days or 21 years ago today that I had to put my partner down. And it was a bad, bad situation. You know, I mean, I lost my partner. One of the best ones I ever worked with on that. A lot of memories, a lot of fun times, a lot of miles together.
Now, John, can we clarify that you're referring to your canine partner?
Yes, Caliber. Caliber.
I was like, how'd you tell his wife?
She's not coming home. I mean, it was not good. No, like I said, you know, all seriously, it was one of them deals. He was ate up with cancer and everything, and you know, the vet said nothing we can do. He said, you know, and I thought, you know, I love the thing too much. I wasn't going to let him sit there and suffer. So I'm sitting there and I was like, okay, I'll make that decision, you know, and people's like, well, you know, do people put other people down? Well, no, but when you sit there and see one suffering, so, you know, I can recall it. Like I said, August 23rd, 10:48 a.m. in Bowie, Texas.
Wow.
On that. Never, I mean, it's just, you know, their times have a way of sticking with you there.
They do. And first off, sorry to hear that.
Oh, he was good. He was good.
And you guys worked together for how many years?
8 years.
So he was your canine partner for 8 years. And I can only imagine you've got some stories of your time with him, with Caliber. Share something with us.
Okay. And, you know, pretty close where Scott's at up there. We trained at Front Royal, Virginia through U.S. Customs. And that's where we were trained at. DPS did their first 32 dogs. You know, and they taught us, trust your dog, trust your dog. And the bad thing about it was when DPS first got in the canine program, you couldn't carry your dog with you on patrol. He stayed at the house. And if you needed the dog, you went and got him, you know, whether it was for other agencies or other troopers or for you. And you talking about a pain in the rear when it's you. Well, I'm sitting there working. It was Christmas Eve. You know, I was working a day shift, 1993. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there southbound 287, see a northbound car. And he's running up 75, 80 miles an hour. It's cold as all get out outside, but all the windows are down on this car. Look like Cheek and Chong going down the road. The smoke is just billowing out. And I thought, oh, yeah, here we go.
We call that PC.
Yeah, there you go. That was PC. And so I go up there, I make the stop, and as soon as I walk up there, I mean, the weed odor just knocked you down. Get up there, you got a man and a woman, and in the back seat is, I'm talking a very, very, very young infant in the car seat. You know, I make my 7-step violator contact, identify the guy. He lives in Grand Prairie, going to Oklahoma. And, you know, where you going? Oh, we're going for family Christmas and all that. And da-da-da. I said, hey, I smell weed. Well, yeah, we were smoking earlier, but we hadn't smoked in a while. I said, dude, I can smell it. So I get up there and I thought, okay, here's me a good one to run the dog over. Well, The problem is now I've got to figure out how I'm going to get the dog and all this. So, you know, it's kind of one of them headaches. So I get up there, I call one of the PD units. They come out there, 2-man unit. They drive the car in. I take the guy in. The other unit puts the mother of the child in the patrol car with the baby in the car seat. We drive into the police department. Get up there, I go to the house, pick up Caliber, come back, and of course, you know, I'd made some pretty good hits and good seizures and everything, but this one was one of those that had you pit in your stomach there, thinking, oh man, you know,
something's not right.
You know, this is going to be one of those. So when I open up the trunk, this thing is loaded full of Christmas presents, wrapped Christmas presents.
Yeah, it's Christmas Eve, right?
It's Christmas Eve, you know, and every one of them is wrapped in Christmas paper that says baby's first Christmas.
Oh,
that's sweet.
I mean, you know, so we get up there and what they teach us or taught us to do there, I knew there was no sense in doing a free air outside because of all the weed in there. I wanted to separate the packages, and I ran a package line, and caliber hit on like about 3/4 of them. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, God darn it. And of course, the father of the child sitting there going, I hope you're really satisfied. You're going to, you're ruining my child's first Christmas by doing this. He's going to tear up those presents. He's doing all this other stuff. Boy, you're a fine guy. You just you're really trying to make me feel bad.
In the back of your mind, where you're hearing, "You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch."
It was, and I'll get to that here in a minute too. But so I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, my K-9 instructor up in Virginia, Scott always said, you get out of that car, your dog alerts, you have the to come out and say, I trust my dog.
Trust the dog.
So I get up there, but I did use a razor blade, and I very carefully cut the tape off it. First package opened up, loaded full of vacuum sealed marijuana. And I'm like, oh, heck yeah.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
It is.
Well, and I do have a question here, John. And you guys let me know if I'm off base here. But do you give that much marijuana to a baby on its first Christmas?
Oh, no. Personal use. No, that's way too much.
No, I mean, not that much. But, when you get up there, too, and after I got in there and every package he hit on, we got weed out of, total about 19 pounds of it. But then I started thinking, what do dopers give other dopers for Christmas?
Good. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Good one. Good one.
Yeah.
I will say this, John. I will say this. That guy definitely got in your head because you were really nice to use a razor blade. I guarantee you right now, you just rip them open.
Oh. I tell you what, as the years went by working with Caliber, it was sort of like if he said, it's there, it's there. And you've had hits before where I never will forget, we were in South Texas. I got a gas tank that was loaded with Coke. And I'm thinking, how in the hell did that dog do that? And then, of course, it was contamination. But as I'm walking away, everybody's like, hey, good dog, all that. And I'm thinking, how in the world did he do it? But I kept that look about myself. But you were talking about Grinch. Mm-hmm. When we got to the jail, as I was turning him over to the jailers, he looked at me and he goes, hope you have a good Christmas, Grinch. And I thought,
you're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
It was, but it's just one of them deals there. And like I said, I've got a ton of memories with the dog. Whenever Caliber went out, he went out with $19.8 million worth of dope and money on his deal.
Good deal.
And I wish I'd got like 1%, for his retirement.
Finder's fee. Really nice.
That's it.
Now, Scott, you said you also work with canines.
I did.
Okay. Any fun times, funny stories from those the times you did work with canines?
I mean, probably more than I can even remember. But I do want to touch on the fact that in 1993, and I'm not a young guy, in 1993 I was graduating high school, John.
I've had that brought up at this show in different segments. The other guys were like, I was being born. I was, Yeah,
it's all good. One night I had a good one. And John and I were talking on the break a little bit. And honestly, the reason I went into canine is I couldn't find a human partner that wanted to work as hard as I did. And that dog every day came out like with its hair on fire, like, hey, what are we going to do? Let's get to business. Wasn't like, I want to go get a coffee or I want to go to my honey hole and sleep. That dog was on all the time. So amazing animals. So get a call for a robbery. It's at a gas station. And I get there and they're like, yeah, he fled on foot. He went that way. Gives me the description. Everything's good. Guys are getting the perimeter set. All of a sudden, we have 21 municipalities within our county that have, their own police departments. One of them call out, I got him. He's bailing out. He's over here. He's jumping a fence. So it was pretty close to the proximity. It was like a block and a half away. I'm like, it very well could be him. So I, of course, abandon what I'm doing and don't start my track from the location. Rookie mistake. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll go over there. So I go over. He's like, yeah, the guy was slouched down in the car. I went past him. Everything was lighting up for this officer. He's like, it was shady. I'm like, I gotcha. So he's like, I swung back around. As I swung around, I put the light on him and he bails out and he runs over that fence right there. And I said, okay, well, what was the description? He says, he matched the description of the robbery guy. Okay, makes sense. I start a track. We jump over the fence. The funny story is I lost my wedding ring on that track because it was raining.
Ooh.
Yeah. My wife was cool about it. Now I wear like a rubber one, which is awesome. Yeah. And so we jump the fence. We go in. The dog starts giving me like a proximity alert. I'm like, oh, I always used to tell the backup guys, I was like, stand by, dude. It's going down. And he goes in. He bites the guy behind the car. The guy start pulling on my lead, drawing the guy out, pulling him out. And the dog is on his right arm. And I'm like, let me see your hands. Let me see your hands. I'm giving him orders to come out. And he's got his one arm up in the air that this, 65-pound dog is hanging on. I was like, let me see your other hand. He says, I only have one arm.
Oh, God.
The lookout for the robbery guy was a 2-armed guy. So
It's like, hold on, boys. We got an unarmed man here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Hang on. Hang on. Where were we at on that? There you go.
Well, it did cost him an arm and leg, so.
So I'm freaking out because I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. And so I really don't do verbal outs on street bites. So I verbally out the dog, call him back to me, and the guy's totally compliant. I mean, he was up to no good. Something was going on. I spent probably 4 hours in that backyard and area from the car to where he was, trying to find something. The gun, whatever it was, I was like, something is here. This guy ran for a reason. And he didn't. But the cool part of the story was the guy was so cool. He was like, listen, in I don't know if you guys know this, Prince George's County had the DOJ come in, and it was pretty heavy on their canine unit. There was crazy stuff happening before me. And so it was pretty bad. And so, supervisors come out. There's all kinds of statements from officers on scene, the victim, this, that, and the other. And so the guy was like, listen, he looks up at my sergeant and he says, hey, could you just get me a case of beer and we call this a day? I said, hey, dude, go get that guy. I'll go get it. I'll go get it right now. And he was like, no, we can't do that. So that was kind of a funny story, but I was just like, damn. And to this day, that's a good one from K9 that I remember.
You could say he would drink in moderation. You can't double fist it.
I was asking if you had to open it for him. Okay, that was wrong. We're going to hell.
To me, that'd be the cheapest settlement that there could have been. Case of beer.
He was totally on it. And that was real old school. That was like what some of the guys would do back in K9 when they were doing really bad stuff to people. They would just buy them cases of beer and send them on their way. So I guess he was like,
he'd been there before.
He'd been there before.
Yeah, that was not his first encounter with a dog. That's why they only had one arm. So
Just keep a case of beer in the back of your squad.
Well,
just in case you screw up.
Sounds like to me he was thirsty and he knew there was a dog. And hey, here you go, dog.
Feed your arm to the dog.
No kidding, and you get a case of beer.
that's not bad.
That's
Tap off,
really
yes.
not a bad plan there.
Yeah.
Huh? They don't do that anymore though.
No, unfortunately, no. It's I mean, that was a good way of doing business, but not anymore.
Hey, I had a total out patrol car repaired for 2 cases of beer at the body shop.
What?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something you can share?
I'd rather not right now.
Statute of limitations is not up apparently.
I'll save that for later.
Yeah.
That's episode 19.
Okay. Any other dog calls, you two?
Oh, well, there was one in particular too that you got out there, you go bring the dog out, and we'd had, I think on episode 6, that talked about dropping the load before the dog worked. And you always try to give the dog a good break before he starts so he has a clear mind. We were out here south of Decatur one night, and I was doing a search, and the troop told me, he goes, I know there's dope in this car. I know there's dope. Well, we get up there. Dog gets up there and runs the car, and all of a sudden there's just this look on his face like, oh man, I forgot to give him a break. Well, we get up there, and the dog just hunkers down, drops a big load right there. And they just so happened to be by the guy, the bad guy who was handcuffed next to the troop. And all of a sudden the guy goes, what's going on? And he looks at the guy and he goes, dog just told us there's more shit and dope in that car than you can shake a stick at. And the guy looked and he goes, okay, let me tell you where it's at. Well, I get up there after Caliber did his deal. I ran it back. He nailed the sidewall and we got the dope out of there, and I'm like, cool. That just, just goes to show with it.
So, because Caliber went up there and dropped a number 2 next to the guy thought that. So we've got passive alert dogs, we've got aggressive alert dogs, then we've got
incontinent dogs.
Well, feces alert dogs.
Feces alert. There you go.
I like it. Feces alert.
Yeah.
That's the new one. All right, guys, we'll be back to more Offbeat in just a minute. Welcome back to Offbeat, the light side of law enforcement. I'm your host, retired officer Steve Rutherford. Co-host today, Detective Curtis Hadley.
Great to be here, guys.
In studio, retired officer John Pelllizzari.
Still great to be here.
That's good. That's good. I'm still great. Joining us remotely from the state of Maryland, we've got Officer Scott Allen.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I do want to remind our viewers, if you've not been to the website, check it out, offbeatcopshow.com. Again, that's offbeatcopshow.com. You can find all previous episodes there on the website, as well as subscribe to the email list. Also, if you are an officer and you have a funny story that you would like to come on the show and tell our listeners, send us an email, offbeatcopshow@gmail.com. Again, offbeatcopshow@gmail.com. All right, Scott, I understand you've got a story about an intoxicated driver.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to gasp.
I know they have them up there in Maryland area too. Believe it?
Well, the roads are a lot curvier, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Well, let's hear it.
All right. So, I was very young. I soon learned that, I wasn't a highway patrol guy like John. So DUIs were not really my friend. But when I was young, I was like, yeah, I want to be a well-rounded officer. Let me give this a shot. I'll do a few of these. So Annapolis, when I worked there, it is a drinking town in the downtown area. It's pretty nice. And, we'd get a lot of young kids that come in, and on the way out, we knew routes where they were going. So we'd set up, and you'd often come up on a car that was stopped at a blinking red light. And I'd be like, here we go. So I'd call the guy I work with. I'd be like, hey, come on over here. We got one. Walk up to the car, passed out. I would try to hope that the car was in park, because drive was not usually good for them.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't end up very well usually. And I would tell my buddy, hey, which one you want to do? He's like, I don't know. Let's do the Running Man. I'm like, all right, cool. So he would get next to the driver's window and he would be running in place and sprinting and be like, he would bang on the window. He'd be like, hey, stop the car, stop the car. And he'd be running. And all of a sudden, again, you'd see the brake lights hit, and the driver's face would be like, "Oh God!" Like they just hit something crazy, and usually we'd get them. Everything would be fine. So those would go pretty good, and then sometimes we'd take it up a level and we'd get one. And my buddy that I worked with was just an amazing guy. It's kind of like what this podcast is all about, like keeping it light, enjoying yourself. Like I didn't want to take pity on somebody's bad situation, but you kind of had to have fun with it at some point,
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool. So it was harmless. Again, that goes into the whole, like, your last episode where they spoke about like DAs getting body cams and going, you guys, we really cannot use this. We're going to toss it.
Yeah.
That would happen every single time on these, but man, were they fun. And we had a really good time.
You had to have fun on the job. If not, it became a job.
Real quick, I used to take like the PIs, I'd take them into jail. And of course, the jailers, we all knew each other. We were in there all the time. And they would be standing there about half drunk or whatever. And they go, what are you putting them in for? I'm like, armed robbery. And where's the guy be like, I didn't rob anybody. We're like, hey, shut up, man. We'll the judge figure this out. The whole time they're like, I was just drunk. I'm like, hey, just keep your mouth shut. The judge will figure it all out.
I love
That's
it.
terrible.
Like I said, you got to have the humor.
You got to, man. It's the way you cope with it. So
No kidding.
Well,
when he had brought up that deal, I thought I was the only one that got away with this. I had a car in the center median, stuck in the mud. When you walked up there, you could tell the guy was drunk. And he just kind of did that old possum look, with old red shot eyes. And I'm running beside the car. And he's looking, car's not moving. And but I'm glad to know I wasn't the only one that pulled stuff like that.
They had names for him. Hey, you want to do the running man today?
No kidding.
That's gorgeous right there.
well,
And when they hit the gas, I'm sure, John, you had this. When they hit the gas and it's going, and the engine's just revving up, it's hysterical.
How is that guy keeping up with me?
wait. No. In John's case, he's running, and whenever they use the leads to get the horses to go and to take off,
It was.
He would lasso
Like
the
we were
whole
talking
car.
about.
Were uncovered wagons called convertibles back then?
Yes.
Always wondered.
And that was if you had the convertible, you were uptown.
I thought it was like a sign of poverty. You couldn't afford to put the cloth on top.
No. Added time.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's show. John, it's always a pleasure having you in the studio.
Oh, it's fun to be here.
Scott, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys are an awesome bunch of guys, and you're doing a great thing for law enforcement.
Hey, we appreciate that, sir. And speaking of which, if you are a first responder and you've got a funny on-the-job story to tell, send us an email, offbeatcopshow@gmail.com. Guys, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Until next time, guys, stay safe and watch each other six.